Hey everyone, welcome back. Hope you're having a good weekend. If you were able to catch my trailer reaction to the first Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom trailer, you might have heard me mention something about an article that came out recently that I wanted to cover on the channel, so that's what I'm going to talk about today. In the meantime, thank you to any new subscribers, and if you do enjoy my videos, make sure to hit that subscribe button, okay? So I'm just going to briefly go over the highlights of this article. It's from Entertainment Weekly, and so I just want to talk about the main points of the article. So originally, Entertainment Weekly visited the set a couple of years ago on the set of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. At that time, they were filming during COVID. You know, this movie's been, principal photography was done quite a long time ago because it was supposed to come out like a year ago, last November or December, but it got pushed around a few times. So now it's coming out December 20th of this year. There's been some reshoots, and we've heard a lot about this movie. Not surprisingly, because it's gone through a couple of changes in leadership. And so let's see what James Wan had to say when Entertainment Weekly caught up with them earlier at the beginning of this week when the article dropped. So the first thing he commented on was obviously the change in leadership, in the middle of making this movie. He said, obviously I have to be mindful. If I'm living in a house and the house is getting renovated around me, it's hard for me to not take notice because the roof, ceiling's missing, right? But the beauty of this movie, this Aquaman world, is that very early on, we always said that we were our own separate universe. My goal was always, if we could spin off a Seven Kingdoms universe, that would be my ideal dream. So what we do ultimately doesn't get affected by all that stuff, all that noise. Really, he wants to keep his Aquaman movies separate from other things going on in the DC universe. And, they're talking about the renovations, commenting on the changes in leadership in the middle of making this movie. Now, he also went into a little bit of detail concerning Black Manta and Orm's role, since they were both in the first movie, but we're also going to see them again in the second movie. A little recap: at the end of the first movie, Orm is sent to prison, and, Black Manta, I think Arthur thinks that he died or that he's not around anymore, but we see at the end of the movie that he is still alive, and that scientist found him and has him, with him somewhere. But I don't think Arthur knows that he's still around. So in this movie, though, Black Manta seems to be a lot more powerful in this movie, which we kind of get that from the trailer as well, and Arthur mentions it too. He is seeking the possession of the Black Trident, and it seems like in the trailer we know that he finds it, which gives him the ability to command an ancient evil. And so I think some of the dialogue we hear in the trailer is Arthur and Orm are talking about it, and Orm's kind of telling him what this Black Trident is about, and that's kind of how Arthur and Orm have to come together to stop what Black Manta is trying to do, and this ancient evil that he's unleashing with the Black Trident. So that segues into what Peter Safran had to say about Orm and Arthur's relationship in this movie. He said, they're forced to work together, but they have no interest in being together. There is a humor in this movie that is far greater than even existed in the first. And Peter Safran, we know, is one of the producers. We get a little bit of that in the trailer as well. They're kind of this, banter between them, and they're, again, forced to work together, but they don't want to. And, I'm sure Queen Atlanna's going to play a role in that too, trying to get them to work together, trying to come together as brothers. And I suspect that by the end of the movie, they won't have as much tension, or, they'll probably come to appreciate each other more as being brothers, and, learn about each other. And I do see some humor coming from that, which I don't mind. I just hope that it's appropriate humor, which I say in a lot of my videos about these movies. I hope it's appropriate. I hope it doesn't take away from, some of the more emotional, deeper moments. I think that's the right way to do humor in these movies. And also because I think Patrick Wilson did a fantastic job as Orm in the first movie. I don't want his character to just all of a sudden become, comic relief. He should still feel like Orm that we got in the first movie, but then just the situation is what brings out the comedy. Now, of course, we've heard a lot about reshoots with this movie. There's been reports that they went through several rounds of reshoots, and we know that Ben Affleck was brought onto set a long time ago, and so of course he was, James Wan was asked about whether or not he did film two different Batman things, one with Michael Keaton, one with Ben Affleck. He said the tricky thing early on was not knowing whether Aquaman would come out first or come out after The Flash, which it did move around a couple of times before and after. That's understandable. So we just had to be prepared. At the end of the day, the best thing I would say about this movie is that it is not connected in any way to any of those films. Very interesting. That's the bottom line. So Batman does not appear in Aquaman 2 is the question. That's a no comment right now, said James Wan. You're going to have to wait for the movie to come out, which I know obviously he's not going to spoil something like that before the movie comes out. So hopefully the studio doesn't take it upon themselves to spoil that in a trailer, you know, like they did with Wonder Woman and Shazam 2. I am hoping that we do get to see Ben Affleck. I know that they're doing a reboot, but just let us see them on screen one last time. This is the last movie we're getting from the current universe, so just let us see them on screen. James Wan doesn't argue with the Hollywood Reporters reporting that James Gunn weighed in on the Aquaman sequel, but he does assert that the end product is very much his vision. So he says, I've known James since way back. We're horror guys, so I'm definitely open to ideas, but at the end of the day, this is my movie. So it looks like, you know, it sounds like maybe he's trying to be a little, you know, careful with his words there. I think maybe, you know, James Gunn probably was trying to make changes, and maybe, you know, James Wan is probably like, no, this is going to be my movie. And, you know, maybe there was a little bit of back and forth there, not necessarily in a disrespectful way, but it seems like James Wan was very protective of this project, which he should be. Maybe there were some, you know, things maybe James Wan had to fight for, things that he wasn't necessarily on the same page with as James Gunn, which is going to happen. It's understandable, but I'm glad that James Wan wants this to be his movie. He doesn't want them to just come in and change everything. He's been working on this long before they were there in charge, so it's fair. Talking about their whole reshoot situation, he says that he directed a comparatively small amount of new material after the main shoot. So to kind of clarify what we heard about the reshoots, he said, we have big actors in this movie and everyone's schedule is really hard, so we had to break up our shooting schedule into sections. We'll shoot a bit here now because this actor's available, and then we'll do another shoot now because this guy's available. People are like, oh, they're doing a whole bunch of different shoots. No, if we actually combine them all together, it's actually not that many number of days at all. So that's his response to all of the reports about doing a whole bunch of reshoots. The next topic of discussion was Mera's role, which was a whole nother a whole lot of other controversy and drama going on because of Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. We were kind of hearing that the studio wanted to decrease her appearance in the movie, or how much screen time she has because of that whole thing. He said, I always pitched this to everyone from the get-go. The first Aquaman was Arthur and Mera's journey. The second movie was always going to be Arthur and Orm. So the first was a romance action adventure. The second is a bromance action adventure. We'll leave it at that. There could have been a little bit of both. Could have been a little bit of the studio saying to cut down her screen time. Could have also been that James Wan is like, that's not the main focus of this movie, so she might have been in it. She might have ended up being in the movie less anyway. I think either way, we can expect that she's not going to have as much screen time or play as big of a role in this one as before. He also talked a little bit about some of the inspiration for designing the Lost Kingdom. He said, everything about the Lost Kingdom came from my love for the Silver Age Aquaman comic, which is the 1960s. Everything has a very retro feel. The Lost Kingdom is, we see this society, and within it, the vehicles, the toys, the weapons. They have traveling vehicles that move in and out of the water, so that's going to be interesting. It looks like we're going to see a whole lot of new things in this movie that we didn't see in the first one, which they're going to talk, Orm kind of talks about the Lost Kingdom as well in the trailer, so that's going to be a whole nother thing to discover in the sequel. And when talking about kind of what we can see in Arthur now in this movie compared to the first movie as far as character arc, he said, what I like between this one and the first one is you really do see the growth of Arthur. He starts off as this kind of wanderer, and in the second one he finally has more of a direction of what he wants to do with his life. If and when there is a third one, that's what it should be. It should be growing these characters, because I think we've set up certain things in a good place in the second movie that you can definitely draw upon in a third. I don't have any stories, but growing the characters is the biggest thing that I think the next Aquaman movie should be about. So he's not saying that there is going to be a third one. He even said he wouldn't have a story for it right now, but that would be the focus of a third movie, and that's what they provide in the second movie to to pave a path for Arthur continuing to grow as a character. And so when they asked him if he would do another Aquaman movie, he said, I don't know, the film has taken up so much of my life, so much of my time. All I can think about now is taking a long break, which is definitely understandable, especially because this one got pushed back a significant number of times, and COVID got mixed in there, and it just created a whole, new leadership, a whole lot of layers. And then, the Amber Heard thing. So a lot of layers, I think, to this movie, and so that's definitely understandable. And with the reboot happening and all of that, I think it would be pretty shocking if they did a third one. Of course, they mentioned the whole Elseworlds thing, movies that are not directly attached to the main continuity, such as the Joker sequel and the Reeves Batman movies, but I don't know, we'll just have to see. I did overall enjoy the trailer. There were a couple of things I probably was like, I don't know about that, But overall, I think it was a pretty decent trailer. Like I said, I hope the humor is appropriate. If it feels natural and it feels like it's part of what's happening naturally in the story or in a specific scene or interaction, great. Then that's good. That's a good thing. But if it feels forced and cheesy and over the top, that's what I don't want to see. Hopefully tonally they can have a good balance with that. Thank you guys for watching. Check out the links in the description, anything you might have missed recently. I appreciate all the support on the channel. You can also check out my merch, link in the description if you're interested in that, and the short section on the channel too. So thank you guys. Leave any thoughts below that you might have on your mind about this article or Aquaman 2 in general, and we'll see you soon.